Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by AndyMark. Are you competition ready? Go to andymark.com and keep your team inspired. And by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by viewers like you. Fun relies on the generous support of our fans in order to continue to keep creating content. Please consider donating, giving bits, or subscribing. Subscribe for a few bucks a month or for free through Twitch Prime. And don't forget that our subscribers get 5x chance to win on all giveaways.
Shut up and sit down.
Tonight on Candidly Speaking, expect our strong opinions on if winning chairmans or being a Hall of Fame team should automatically qualify your robot for competition. And also, should first update any rules like G24. And as always, we'll take some of your comments and questions from chat. Candidly Speaking for First Updates Now, I'm Libby Kamen-Drost.
And I'm Karthik Kanagas of Apathy. And our producer for tonight is Tyler Olds. If you have any questions that you'd like to be read during our Q&A segment near the end of the show, make sure you hit us up in chat, tag First Updates Now, and just type it in, and we'll try and get your question if it's not stupid. So tonight, we do have a giveaway brought to you by Team 1756, Argos, who are gearing up for the Detroit Championship. So let's bring on our producer, Tyler, to provide us some more details on how to win.
Thanks, Karthik. If you guys are interested in winning this giveaway, all you have to do is make sure that you either follow or subscribe to the First Updates channel. Our subscribers do get 5 times chance to win all giveaways because we definitely want to thank and recognize those people who help support our shows and creating great content. If you do win, make sure you send me a private message at First Updates Now on Twitch, Facebook, or Discord with your name, mailing information, and it is a t-shirt, so send me your size as well too, guys, because we'll need that too. And if you're interested in being part of a giveaway with your team, shoot us a message, and we'd love to feature your team on air as well.
Okay, so here what it says, if you would like to win, all you have to do is be watching live, logged into chat, and you're going to follow our channel and type in the keyword when you're prompted. And if you're a sub, you get 5 times chance to win. So before we dive into any discussions, not candid, or I guess candid, but not like mean or sassy, we get into any discussions, all of us at Fun would like to take a couple of minutes to remember and celebrate someone who's an absolute legend in the FIRST community, who impacted tens of thousands of lives. If you haven't heard, Mark Leon, the force behind the NASA Robotics Alliance project, passed away this past week. Do the math, save the world. I actually wanted to kick off, and I normally don't like stealing other people's, social posts, but I actually found Dave Lavery's Facebook post kind of, honoring him to be really informative because at being an East Coaster, I didn't know Mark as well as some of you guys in the community have. So learning about his work was actually really interesting. So I'm going to steal snippets from this post, and I do apologize for the steal, but most never had the chance to see past the crazy blue-haired guy doing running rolls across the FRC arena while yelling, "It's all about the math." There's a whole lot more and a lot more complexity. His early exploits as a communications engineer focused on developing new communications prototypes. This included creating an innovative live video link to Antarctica during a period when it was thought to be technologically impossible. This is at the same time as Dave's stuff, but Mark's true passion emerged around that, and working with students to infuse them with the same excitement and fervor that he had for engineering. Again, just wanting to take a second to acknowledge a truly incredible person, a part of our community. Thoughts to friends and family and loved ones, and as a part of it's an icon in our community. It's going to be missed for sure.
Kind of a hard one because Mark, was a friend of mine, and it's just hard to imagine the influence that Mark had on all of us. But you got to think about it. Going back to the early 2000s, First in California had just been on the scene, and I don't know, just from my personal experience, back then, if you wanted to watch an event, webcasts were so in their infancy, but NASA just put together these amazing webcasts. And if you were watching the stream of a NASA sponsored event, you were going to see Mark Leon out there. And he was when I think of first MCs, obviously Woody was the guy, but then there was Mark Leon, and he was just this ball of energy just running across the field, flying around, rolling around, and just spouting off random facts about telecommunications lines, telling stories about when he was in Antarctica, weaving it in between matches, and then like bird calls. Like, but he understood how to hype matches. But he was just telling such fascinating stories. And I just remember as like a college kid, like this Mark Leon was the coolest freaking guy. I wanted to be an MC because of Mark Leon, and I wanted to be like him. Like Mark Leon was a mathematician. I was a math major. Like this is like was like I wanted to be like this guy. I just like when we talk about like for a good period, there was Dean and Woody, Dave Lavery, but then Mark Leon was like the next biggest face in first. And I would think waging on the West Coast, he was bigger than Dave Lavery and almost as big as Dean and Woody. Everyone knew who this guy was. I remember, I met him at Champs in like 2004, talked a bit. I was just like an awestruck kid, as a drive coach or whatever. Then I remember a couple years ago, I saw him at Champs and like he remembered my name. And like I geeked out so much. Like, oh my God, Mark Leon knows my name. And like that's how big this guy was. And like that, as you could go on, like everyone has a Mark Leon story. Everyone, whether like they react the way that Libby just did when I just mentioned his bird calls, or like everyone remembers the time about Mark telling, the story about when he was in Antarctica over and over again. And if you've interacted with him, like there's Mark Leon in a banana suit. Like he was so into things, and like I think so many FRC kids related to Mark. Because like Mark had this goofy sense of things where he would just get so hyper focused on something, and then all of a sudden it's like something shiny, go, and like it was this great energy, and like he was like super brilliant. But I remember at Champs in 2012, and it was 254, 341, and 78 were on Alliance, and they went to triple balance the bridge, but they couldn't, because a Roomba was stuck under the bridge. Someone had been vacuuming before. And then Mark, just after the match, goes, bad robot. Bad robot. And like he just starts pasting the Roomba. It was like, oh my God. Like Mark was the best. And, but like his impact wasn't just, like for FRC kids in North America. Like he's been so involved. His wife, Monica, runs a major not-for-profit in Latin America. It's based in Colombia, but they do work all over Latin America, spreading FLL and VEX to so many countries. And Mark's been doing that for such a long time. And oh my God, did he love Monica, his wife. Like he would just, when he would talk about Monica, he would just get so excited. And it's like, just because when Mark was passionate about something, he went all in, no matter what it was, whether it be robots, judo, math, his wife, and he loved his teams. The love he had for 254, for the cheesy poops, and for the space cookies. He would just never stop talking about them. And he was the biggest cheesy poof fanboy like out there. And I mean, like Mark, like so many MCs today don't even realize, but they owe so much to Mark, because Mark made it okay for us to stretch out our intros a little bit longer. And Mark made it okay for us to banter a little bit with the game announcer. And he's just, I just can't believe he's gone. Like I just remember every year at VEX Worlds, like Mark coming out, and like at VEX Worlds I have this IFP, and so like it's in my ear so I can hear anyone else that's on microphone. I remember I was backstage and it was like super silent. I was just like prepping. Then all of a sudden I hear right in my ear. And it's Mark Leon suddenly doing bird calls as he's been mic'd up and he doesn't know his mic is on. It's all about the map. And it's like, I'm going to miss Mark a lot. And I think for those of you who don't know him, I hope maybe we can find some webcast or something you can see. Google him. There's so many stories about him out there. And more than just what he did in FRC. Like he was so concerned about his community. And like he really cared about kids in the inner city. Like he was just a good person. And he would, like, a lot of people just see the zany, blue-haired, sweat-covered Mark Leon, but there was so much more to this man. And I he's one of my heroes. I'm gonna miss him.
Yeah, I think as far as MCs goes, he's just one of the most incredible ones. He's such a talk about the person that can make science and math cool. Like Mark is one of the first people that I think of. So sorry, it's like candidly speaking, but then there's more emotions than just sass. So before we keep going, something that we wanted to put out on the show is that we actually got to find out that to honor Mark's legacy, a bunch of teams have stepped up to provide the amazing stickers. Some of you guys have seen them. Some of us have seen the Facebook stickers, but this one specifically, Tyler's put it up on the screen right now. It's from Christine from Word Play All Day. She does draw with Let's Draw Robots on this show as well, so you'll probably recognize the art style. But so the NASA Ames Research Center host teams, which is 254, 1868, and 971, are going to be offering a sticker to each team in attendance at the Houston Championship. And if you would like a sticker, they'll have them in those teams' pits as well. At Detroit, it'll be Team 125 and Rev. So I'm sorry, I'm getting like extra emotional. I know how much it means to see a sticker like this all over the place at Champs. So I know that it would be important to the community if you guys can help out and, you know, put the sticker on your robot, do the math, save the world.
Okay, you know, on to other topics in the world of FRC. Our first debate tonight, this better be a short one, is about Chairman's Award-winning teams from all levels of competition. On our previous episode, we talked about teams that were, you know, BSing their way through their submissions. But let's talk about the teams who actually have earned the award at some level of competition. So there's two questions that have been brought up by some of our viewers. First is whether Chairman's teams who win at a district championship, regional level should be automatically qualified to compete with their robot at the next level of competition. And should there be certain restrictions to this? It's like, say, maybe a robot has to finish in the top 50% of something. So that's question number one that we'll talk about. And number two is teams who are already in the Hall of Fame eligible for culture-changing awards like the Engineering Inspiration Award. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm going to let Libby go first.
Sure. So I guess I have a to the first part, right? You know, should winning chairmans at a district level go to district, take your robot to district championship, or should winning at the regional level take your robot to championship? You know, I want to start this off because I feel like we're going to talk about specific situations too. Is like at no point are either of us trying to be like very specifically mean to your team because it applies to you here, right? I think it's more of a general principle thing. But in my head, the Chairman's Award isn't just about outreach. It's not an award for the number of times you host a booth at the science fair. It's about the whole package of your team, you know, beginning to end, whether you're, you know, inspiring people through engineering. And I would love it from a perspective of, you know, just the idea of the award and what the award means, that if there were some sort of metric that were like, you're also good at engineering, because if you're not great at engineering and you're like sharing that forward, are you making as much of an impact of another team? Are you really that role model team for others to emulate? That's my idealist brain. That's what I would like in the award description, right? And I think the other thing is that ties into that is that there are so many times, and I don't know if it's necessary being in a district now, if it's gotten maybe a little bit better with the robot iteration improvements that you see in districts, but there's always like teams at when you advance because of chairmans that unfortunately people see that team and go, oh, they got here on chairmans, and you can tell because their robot doesn't functionally play the game, and that's super frustrating to play with. It's super frustrating to be part of the community, but that facet is so hard to make it a part of the award, right? There's this idea that say like, oh, you can't win chairmans if your robot's in the bottom 50% of rankings. And it's like, well, rankings aren't a great way to see if your robot is that, you know, it's not a great way to gauge robot performance. You know, maybe that's something that the technical judges could help weigh in on, right? Like, is this a team that is inspiring others and is a quality engineering program? It's not kind to say, but I guess sometimes that happens on the show. Is like, are you really that role model team if your robot sucks, right? Like, are you engineering in a way that is inspiring to others? It's a hard question because at the same time, it's like there are teams who do so much, but maybe don't have as many resources to build this crazy good robot. Which my personal answer is spend the resources on your robot instead of on chairman's. But I mean, maybe that's something that technical judges could help weigh in on. I'd like to see a better celebration of the engineering alongside of the outreach. Maybe I'll let Karthik, I'll let you touch on that first before we get into the Hall of Fame one. We'll kind of bounce back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've seen discussions lately saying that, hey, maybe if a team wins chairman's at a district championship, they shouldn't. I mean, sorry, if they win chairman's at a district event, they shouldn't move on to their district championship, and that's a slippery slope. Like, if we are going to call this first most important award, but we're going to say, oh, you can go to your district championship just to present chairman's, but not with your robot. Like, I mean, that's dangerous. I think it would be ridiculous to take away any sort of automatic qualification away from chairman's award winners. I don't understand what we're trying to do with that. We keep getting speech after speech about it's not about the robot, and the chairman's is the most important thing, and so we have to continue that. And I think I've seen no indication from First that they want to move away from that, but I do think I've seen some of that in the community, and I don't understand where that sentiment's coming from, because I mean, like, who would I rather have at the Ontario District Championship? A team who won chairman's but, is ranked like 90th in points, or a team who won chairman's and is ranked like 81st in points and was just on the cutoff? I'd rather have the chairman's team. Like, if that chairman's team is 157th, I think I'd still rather have the chairman's team there. Sometimes it gets frustrating to be paired with like a bad robot, but I find that most of the people who are complaining about this also have robots that I wouldn't want to be paired with. So, it goes both ways. So this is like our most important award. So, I'm all for tweaking the criteria if we want to do that, because, as Libby said, it's supposed to reflect the team who's the best overall role model for others. And it's hard to say a team that can't field a competitive robot is the same level of, role model as a team that can. But at the same time, if you look at most of our chairman's winners, at least the regional level this year, most of them have won a regional or been a finalist at a regional. Shelby Anderson from 1011 posted on Chief today, and it really good details about how only I think a handful, like 5 or 6 chairman's teams this year haven't made the elims at their event, and that's probably, if I wanted to change the criteria, where I'd probably put the bar, so I don't see it. And I know there was some talk on Chief where there was someone suggesting that Hall of Fame teams shouldn't have an automatic spot at championship. And they even suggested that 11-14 shouldn't have an automatic spot at championship. And I just want to be show me, okay. Sure.
Are you going to ask them how many wins they got?
Yeah, really. There's a sticker for that now. But I think if you look at it, the importance of having the Hall of Fame teams, if you look at them, you're talking 254, 11-14, 67, 987. I think we're okay with giving them a spot at champs. I think almost all of them would earn it almost every single year, especially if they were in a region with districts or with the advent of wildcards. So it's I don't, if we're going to go after teams for quality at the championship and say they don't deserve a spot, Hall of Fame teams wouldn't be where I'm going. Maybe I'd be going for the 24th team into the Lions selection, or maybe I'd be going
the wait list.
Even the 24th team is probably because at least some of the waitlist teams are teams who are motivated to attend championship. So I know I've had discussions with others about that, but there's lots of places I'd go long before I'd go to the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, I think the reason I bring waitlist up more is the idea that our computer system notices you haven't been here in a while. Come along with us. And we're arguing about the Hall of Fame not getting to go to, instead of we noticed you haven't come here in a while, so why don't you join us? Sorry, we're a little off topic, but it's an important topic. As far as Hall of Fame being eligible for the other culture change awards, there's a lot of discussion around Hall of Fame teams winning engineering inspiration, which again, I said this last night on Region Recap, and I'm going to say it again tonight, is leave the teams in question alone, please. But it's, I think the way that chairman's works for the Hall of Fame, right, is where you wait 5 years, and then if you would like to resubmit, you can. I think that's pretty fair. I don't think that it necessarily should apply to EI. I mean, EI is this weird, ambiguous, no one actually knows what it's for, because half the judges say it's second place chairman's and half people say it's a technical award. But I think it's it's important to, remember that teams are in the Hall of Fame because they're doing a lot, but then after that 5-year period, it's a whole new group of students doing stuff. And I don't think it's, necessarily fair to say like, oh, well, because someone 10 years ago did this thing on your team, now you're not eligible for some very important awards ever again. I just don't think that's appropriate. And that's not a way to honor the Hall of Fame. That's just going to restrict them. And I think that's kind of crappy, because if they're your role models and they're the teams you want to look up to, like, leave the doors open for them. Let them continue to shine.
Yeah, I have a slightly different perspective, and this is from being a mentor on 11-14, a Hall of Fame team. We have no interest in winning the Engineering Inspiration Award, and we would feel kind of weird if we did, to be completely honest, because I think that we by number one, we've got our ticket, and I don't want to take that away from someone. And I know in districts it's different, things shuffle down, so it's not really doing that. But we've got our recognition, and I don't think we need to be recognized for doing the same things that got us into the Hall of Fame. However, I don't speak for the entire Hall of Fame. I think there's some Hall of Fame teams who really like going through the process of pushing for the Engineering Inspiration Award, and that's important to them. So, I guess my thought is, if the judges were to, if there was to come down with a rule that Hall of Fame teams can't earn the EI award, I wouldn't bat an eye. It wouldn't concern me in the slightest. But I do know some of my fellow Hall of Fame teams really do like competing for it and being eligible for it. So, to each their own. The Hall of Fame's not like a monolith. We all have varying opinions. But I do think, I don't know. Like, I see the way that, put it this way, most of these teams who are in the Hall of Fame are still doing the same things that they did when they won the Chairman's Award. People ask me what changed after 11-14 got into the Hall of Fame, and I said, in the past, we spent a considerable amount of effort documenting our efforts to change culture. Now we just spend all that time on trying to change culture. We don't go through that documentation submission process, which was so time consuming. We can just do cool things when we want to do cool things, not be worried about making sure we have like 500 pictures and like letters of proof from 3 different people that we did it, that we're not counting the amount of parking spots to try and figure out how many people attended. We're just not doing that nonsense anymore. And it's just like, we just do cool stuff. And, it's like, hey, we'll do some seminars and stuff. And like, hey, we'll answer all emails for Ontario teams or whatever. Like, we just do cool stuff. And I don't think we are looking for an Engineering Inspiration Award to kind of justify any of that sort of things.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent perspective, and thank you for the perspective from at least, one Hall of Fame team. I think we have a couple of things to chat, but we can get to it towards the end, I think. But we do have one here from Sam. I will not do the Karzik mispronunciation of Sam's last name. But Sam says, I think that making the point that Hall of Fame teams are already quality is problematic because it doesn't directly address the problem. Many Hall of Fame teams are indeed not as good as some other teams, and that doesn't mean they should lose pre-qualification.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's fair.
Yeah, because, yes, absolutely. Part of the value the Hall of Fame teams bring to the championship is not the quality of the robot. I think I was focusing on the quality argument because that's the argument that people were taking. That's the angle people were looking at this from, through just the robot lens, saying that, these Hall of Fame teams are making my championship weaker or something like that. But, your championship got weaker when they made 2 of them. Hey, sorry, I hate to tell you.
What championship? Yes. I heard we were at convention now.
Yeah, no, but it is true. The value the Hall of Fame teams bring to the championship is so much more, but they're telling stories of their outreach for so many years, and they're there as an inspiration. And I think of a team like Team 120, and they're not the best example because they won champs a couple of years ago, but for a long while, their robot quality wasn't what it used to be. And I still am wowed by the things that they did when they got into the Hall of Fame. And it's always neat to talk to the mentors who were involved then and that are alumni who were involved then. The Technotics would be another example of just like sustained excellence for outreach and doing so many cool things. And I think it's important, we talk about a lot of things as a community. And if we are, going to talk about the importance of spreading the word of first, like some of these Hall of Fame teams have done legendary things, and it's important to continually recognize them, whether or not their robots are quality. However, most of them have really, really good robots as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the best point is, and I remember having this conversation with someone in Game Day chat the day that awful Chief Delphi thread was made, which was that, the Hall of Fame teams being a championship, like you said, have way more value. Like, whatever their robot quality is what it is, but like, go talk to them, go learn something from them. That's why they're at the championship. That's why part of the reward for the Hall of Fame is that championship bid. Anyway, so I think we've kind of covered it. If you've got stuff in chat to add to that, you can tag at First Updates Now, and Tyler will put it in here for us to read off in a bit. But we will move on to our next little segment. So the latest and final team update was just released today, a little bit before the show. But we did want to bring up a conversation around a rule that we would be delighted to hear possible future interpretation on, or, just spitball around. So this past weekend at Lone Star South Regional, a thought was brought up that a change might need to be made to Rule G24. Qualifying match 28 was a matchup between 118, the Robonauts, and 4587 Jersey Voltage, which always confuses me because you're not from Jersey. I'm sorry, it really used to bother me.
I have the same problem. For
years,
used
to bother me.
New Jersey.
Come on, y'all. Anyways, this match we thought was going to foreshadow the finals. So while trying to get in position for endgame, 118 accidentally knocked 2 power cubes off the Red Alliance side of the scale. Initially, it looks like 2 fouls were called against 118, but this was adjusted post-match to show no fouls. So Rule G24 states, strategies aimed at removing power cubes from plates, I always, whenever it's caps, I want to yell it, removing power cubes from plates are prohibited with a tech foul per cube removed. So the drive coach for Jersey Voltage stated in our Facebook comments, the head ref said it was unintentional, in quotes, which is why there were no fouls given. But in my opinion, it really matters because it would have changed the outcome of the match. Would have won by 9 points without tech fouls included. I was going to say, for some reason, 11-18 is what my brain read. 118's drive coach Justin also stated that they had a new driver and it was most definitely not intentional, but that shouldn't matter. So really the discussion here is, should the accidental brushing, knocking off, be a change made to G24? Does G24 need to reflect when teams accidentally remove cubes from plates?
Yes. I mean, yes, that's all there simply is to it. Otherwise, they 45-87 lost that match because 118 removed 2 cubes from the scale. That totally flipped the match. It flipped ownership of the scale for 20-25 seconds there. So that's 40-50 points. And if you read the ruling, it says strategies aimed at removing power cubes from plates are prohibited with a tech foul per cube removed. Yeah, and I get it's strategies aimed at, and it was definitely not 118's strategy, but I guess if you read the rule that way, sure. But to me, it just seems like 118 clearly gained an advantage even by their accidental movement. Even if their movement was accidental, they gained an advantage on the scale because of that. And that just seems like the antithesis of what should be allowed. So I'm just really confused as to why the rule was written this way and why it was. I guess I'm not confused why it was enforced this way, because I can see how someone would read it this way. But that's crazy to me.
Yeah, and actually it's funny because I went back and I made myself some notes here, and coming back to them, I actually hate what I wrote. So let's just throw that in the garbage. What I did want to touch on, though, is whether it's for G24 or it's for scale contact, there's a lot of punishing accidental contact. The scale plate is a perfect example right now. Teams that miss their intake by half a second, get this, crazy foul, and you're punishing bad drivers. I don't like on a theory, on a principle from up high, penalties that are for accidents because they're just going to make people feel worse. They're punishing teams that have worse drivers or have less practice. But going back and watching this match, truly to see that the knockdown did impact the end of the match. This is where the case of we shouldn't penalize teams for accidents. doesn't stick, right? It really did benefit them here, whether they meant it or not. I just, from a lot of the penalties currently surrounding the scale, I think are a little bit too much based on accidental. I have watched teams just sort of like, a zip tie grazes the scale, the position doesn't change in the slightest, and I watch the foul go up, and it's like, okay, like, we get it. You have a flag. Cool guy. But it's like, that was originally kind of the take I had on this. And then I went back and watched it a couple more times. I wrote this morning before I had enough coffee. And clearly my brain was not screwed on the right way. I mean, I feel like I don't agree with the things in our chat that are saying, even if it benefits you and it was accidental, it was a strategy. When a team didn't go into that match going like, let's pretend that we totally meant to didn't mean to knock it off. Right?
Yeah, but
the strategy is a choice, right?
But I don't think that's necessarily the point that they're making in the chat. I think the point is it should be interpreted that way to allow for the ruling to allow for a penalty there.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can agree with that.
Because like I guess the whole thing is, I think you really touched on it. And I didn't even think about it. Yeah, like someone bumps into the scale, and there's a 5-point penalty just for like bumping into it for not even changing the position. Like it just shakes a little bit. That's a penalty. But this knocking 2 cubes off, like,
isn't.
Yeah,
knocking 2 cubes, changing the tip of the scale, and then winning.
I think there's a bigger point here, and I think the bigger point is that this game is slightly unbalanced with some penalties due to time-based scoring. Because before, you could penalize an action with a point penalty because actions had their point value for action was worth the same at any point in the match.
Right.
However, in this game, because of time-based scoring, actions that happen earlier in the match could be worth a lot more points. As such, but the penalties don't scale. Scoring scales with time, but penalties don't. And so you get into some really weird scenarios where it may be actually very advantageous to intentionally take penalties. One example would be the pushing of cubes towards your own plate.
Yeah.
If you heard a bunch of them there, all of a sudden I have 6 cubes lined up, and I can go like 11, 14, or 254 and 2015 off a ramp and just go pick 1, 2, 3, and I've just taken over the scale for the whole match, and that's like hundreds of points there, and the penalty at max for pushing all those cubes is going to end up being like 30 points, and so I think it's I just think there's a little bit of imbalance there. And I think part of that is coming from it's the first year of playing a game with time-based scoring, and there's lots of things to look at. But there's a lot of cases right now where it's worth taking an intentional penalty. Like, you're playing against one of the best scalers in the world, and it's the start of teleop. It might be worth taking a tech foul and shoving them right away from their plate, just because now your partners are going to take a 2-on-1 advantage on the scale and build up a lead. And we know how much harder it's to score on a losing scale, even for the best teams in the world. So I've heard lots of teams, very good teams, who are talking about taking intentional penalties at the start of teleop, taking those tech fouls to just gain control of the scale. And it's like, man, like when the rules allow for that sort of stuff, there's openings, and there's going to be very smart teams who take advantage of it. And the teams who are like, oh, I would never take an intentional penalty, are ones who kind of get punished. So it's I don't know, it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's and then always the discussion of like, oh, well, I would never do that. It's like, well, I mean, the rules are this way, and it might be okay to do. It might be not okay, but like it might be advantageous to do that, and to just like put yourself up and say like, I would never do that is like, okay, well then like you're gonna lose to that at some point.
And yes, true, that absolutely is. But like, I would like to create a world where the teams who say, yeah, I don't want to take an intentional penalty, aren't punished by designing rules such that it's never advantageous to take a penalty. And I mean, never is a crazy word, because there's always going to be something, but you want to really minimize that epsilon such that there are fewer opportunities for things like this. I mean, an example would be at the Windsor event. 6'10", needed 4 ranking points in a match to move up to the number 1 seed. They only had 1 hanger on their alliance, so they knew their only way for getting um, that fourth ranking point was to draw a penalty. And so them and their partners blockaded a team in their platform zone, took the intentional yellow card, but then ended up
got the climb.
Got the climb. And so totally agree with 610 what they did. It was actually a really intelligent move, and then to execute it, crazy. But maybe the rules should be better about that sort of stuff. And maybe, if you intentionally blockade someone into your platform zone, you shouldn't be able to get the extra ranking point. I don't know.
Yep. It's interestingly enough, on the flip side of that is I'll speak from us. We had a match where someone was in our platform zone, and this is where it comes down to the consistency of reffing, things being, called the same and called in a way that there's not any of this weird, Tyler, can I swear? Weird fuckery with the rules. I couldn't think of a better replacement for that. Where some, blue was in our platform zone. I don't even remember which color we were, but let's say blue for giggles. And we're trying to just go for a climb, and they were going, oh, well, we couldn't get out. They were in the way, and we didn't get the extra climb because the other team claimed we were blockading them in. So it's okay, which way are we going to do that? It's interesting. I would very much like, consistency. I would like it so that these kind of situations don't exist. But I mean, their last rule update came out today, so I guess we are stuck this way.
Yes and no. I mean, sometimes there can be advice given to referees from above on how rules should be interpreted without a rules update. Not something that I love, but I know what happens. So, we'll see. I mean, these are all good questions that people should be bringing up at the drivers' meeting at championship if they, are so inclined. Absolutely. It might be better than some of the questions we get at drivers' meetings, like, yo, how do we score points? Remember that guy?
Oh my god. I love drivers meetings. I love the championship drivers meeting. It's the best ever. So clear, so concise.
I remember, we're just gonna go off topic, but we're a little bit ahead of schedule, and then so we might as well. But there was almost a tradition at championship in the late 2000s where it's who was going to be the one who had the guts to ask the question of what division plays what division on Einstein, because it didn't used to be in the manual, but people didn't want to ask that question because it seemed so incredibly cocky, to ask that question. But then it almost became a thing where the team who's kind of had the undisputed best robots of the regional season would ask that question at championship. There'd be this ooh kind of thing, and it was I don't know. I just kind of miss those moments. The drivers meeting at champs is always a fun time because you have all the drive teams of the best teams in the world sitting in one section, cracking jokes with each other and stuff. So it's just this cool little sort of community thing, and it's it was neat to see 1114 sitting with 254 at the drivers meeting, or 118 sitting with 177 or whatever. It was just cool to see. I don't know, it was just cool.
Absolutely. I like chat's reminding me too of Noodle Quiver Guy from 2015. Asking if you could put your noodles in a little backpack. I
remember at Vex Worlds at the drivers meeting one year, this kid came up and he was dressed up like a muffin. And I had to take a question from him. He was dressed up as a muffin. I'm like, why are you dressed up like a muffin? Was literally my question to him.
Can we have a Candidly Speaking where we talk about terrible costumes? Or is that too mean?
Our producer Tyler is instigating us in our ears right now. He is trying to cause trouble.
On Candidly Speaking? Who? Anyway, so we do have a little bit of time before top 25, so we can field some of the questions that our live audience have submitted. So you can tag at First Updates Now. That's producer Tyler in the chat if you have a question or a comment that you want Karthik or myself to answer. But before we do start answering questions, we are going to start the giveaway entry for this awesome t-shirt and custom keychain from Team 7056 Argos. To win, make sure that you click the follow button here on Twitch. It's the heart up in this corner. And if you would like to directly help support fun in creating new content, you get some sweet emotes. You can click subscribe, which is either $5 or free with Twitch Prime. And you can actually get 5 times chance to win. So right now, you are going to type in the keyword Argos 1756. It's one word, Argos 1756. And we will draw for the winner after our Q&A segment. So our first question is Libby or Karthik, would you like to comment on the word strategic as used in FRC game rules?
I mean, I thought we did already.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess I think I see what the question is asking after reading it again. Is that more like it's a vague term? So when you say was penalty foul or technical foul if strategic, maybe they should specifically use the word intentional as opposed to strategic at times, because that's a little bit clearer. Because I definitely have heard debates over what strategic necessarily means, or maybe it would be as simple enough as defining strategic in the glossary. Like, I just think that anything that isn't being used in its 100% dictionary connotation should be defined in the glossary. For example, launching, but that's another one. A question we have from our good friend Azathoth __. Suggestion: penalties worth more early in match. Yes, that could be a thing that works very well with time-based penalties. I still don't know if it would address the issue of the scale being so important early in the match, because once you're losing on the scale, it becomes that much harder to score on the scale. But I mean, heck, some teams just can't score on a losing scale, especially if it's over. I would definitely hit some of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think this is the first, year of time-based scoring. If this is something First wants to continue, it's something they have to take into account, because right now, like Karthik brought up, there's some issues with a single value on a point, but the time-based scoring for possession.
Well, so. And I actually think that maybe a good topic for our first show after the championships would possibly be a review of time-based scoring. Maybe we can get like a guest on a winner of the World Championship from one of those 6 teams or 8 teams, I guess, and then we can just do that on the next one, because I think, especially after the championship, we can kind of review what we think of this. And, I have some opinions, but I do want to see how it plays off at Worlds.
Absolutely. So going a little bit back to our last topic, is if you take the intentional tech foul for taking cubes off the scale, is there a possibility that would ever escalate to a yellow card, or is this actually a decent strategy? I don't know if you're asking, like, is that currently a rule, or should it be? But I guess we'll go with should it be.
I will say this. There is the rule which says that, intentional or egregious violations of a rule could lead to a yellow or a direct red. Mm-hmm. And I think that rule should be called more than it is, but I think refs loathe to use it. But I definitely saw some intentional strategies last year where teams were just totally okay with, I'm just going to take the yellow card because I know I'm going to win the match if I do this. And I think it's those cases where the red's got to come in, and like blockading the field would be one of those where I think referees should be a bit more forthcoming with a direct red, because you can totally commit an illegal action by blockading the field and then win the match. Like, for example, if all the platform cubes have been exhausted and you go block both portals and just take a yellow card for blockading the field, you've shut down their access to cubes. So there's way too many intentional penalties that I can think of that are beneficial this year. That's not a good sign.
No, for sure. And I think that, like you said, it would be really nice if the game were a little bit better is the wrong word, but designed in a way that kind of situation doesn't arise for teams.
I will say this: I did not think of most of these intentional penalties during the 6-week build season. It's only as the season's been going on, so I understand why a lot of these holes are there. Like, time-based scoring was new for all of us, So, but like the blockading the field one, that's one that I've always thought should have the referee should be more forthcoming with direct reds.
Our next couple of questions go, one of them, I'll skip the one for now because it's back on this topic, is when does intentionally breaking a rule turn from smart to being un-GP? Do those who have looser morals benefit? Now, I don't like just blanketing something you don't like as calling it ungracious or unprofessional, but I will entertain the question. I think, this situation shouldn't arise for teams. We're kind of already touching on this, but this doesn't need to be a part of gameplay for teams, that you have to consider this. I don't know if you have any other.
Yeah, I don't think that morals come into play when it comes to, because I don't think it's a question of morality when it comes to just taking a penalty, like a basic, I'm going to violate the null zone. I don't think there's anything moral about that. I think where morals come into play was intentionally tipping robots or intentional damage or like going in and hacking Einstein or something like that. So I think we got to be careful where we toss around the word moral.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between strategy and dirty play. For example, at the Western event this past weekend, I saw some dirty play where a team was intentionally ramming a team while they were hooked onto the hanging bar. To me, that's crossing the line from, yeah, I'm taking an intentional penalty to benefit, to just being dirty, because you're putting yourself in a position where you could damage someone's robot. And like, that's where I think the line really is.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. I think that sometimes we blanket ungracious over just stuff we don't like, right? Like, let's talk about strategy versus morals. I think that would actually be a really interesting longer form topic at another point. And then we have 2 questions about the championships. So the first one is thoughts on the theory of waitlist spots being open to local teams, so Houston teams or Detroit teams, rather than whoever is next in line. Personally, until they start moving the championship multiples, god dang it, every year, that's not fair, because so every Houston team is going to get off the wait list at some point. Like, you're going to be
okay. I don't understand their question.
The thought is, instead of having the wait list just be like the random lottery to whoever is in the wait list, that the priority would go to teams local to that championship.
Right, but is that what they're actually asking, or are they saying, my theory is that what's happening now is that they're giving it Detroit versus...
I can't tell.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, but like, put it this way. If it comes down to the last 3 days before championship and there's empty spots there, then yes, I would absolutely favor giving them just to local teams to make sure those spots get filled, because I would hate to see spots at the championship go unfilled. But early in the process, just go through the normal position. But like, I know at Vex Worlds, we used to do this actually. We would keep a list of local teams handy. So if someone dropped out the day before the event, we'd call up the local team and say, hey, you're in, you're going to Worlds. And it would make sure that spot got filled, especially if schedules had been generated, to make sure that, no one was having to deal with one-on-twos.
Yeah, I think I'm more thinking of like 2 weeks ago when they were starting to letting teams off the wait list. I don't think that's an appropriate time to do that. Because then it's like, okay, well, then when are you going to move the championship to New York so my team can be on the good list, right?
Right.
When are you going to move it to Toronto so your team can be on the good list?
So McNabb59 just posted in chat, we have been told it's local to the champs first. That's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah,
and I feel like something like that would have been published at some point. So I don't. If you actually believe that's a thing, someone should ask on the Q&A.
Yeah. And just to quickly address the people who are asking how the waitlist work, that's something that you'd sign up for in your Tim's account as a team to be on the championship waitlist. It's a part of the registration process.
All right, we're down to 3 minutes left, so let's try and blaze through here.
Yes, I think we're going to blaze through. Do you believe, this is one question left anyway, do you believe that divisions should be slowly filled up as soon as teams make Worlds, and each division should have specific spots for rookies, division teams, Hall of Fame teams, and then the rest of the spots to be filled by teams as they qualify? This would make it easier to pre-scout and gather more data on the teams going to Worlds. I don't necessarily, as much as I understand it in a 2-second Twitch question, I don't love the idea of like splitting teams up by how they qualified for, I don't know. Doesn't sit right with me.
So I do know that the Michigan State Championship and the Ontario Provincial Championship, they use an actual algorithm to split the teams into divisions. And I don't know why they don't use an algorithm like that for Worlds. Now, granted, this algorithm is based on the points rankings of the teams, and it just tries to get an equitable split of points rankings between the divisions. But I mean, you could apply the universal point system to all teams across FRC and then use that to split the teams to ensure that you don't get one stacked division. And I think that would be a good, if they're doing it in Ontario and Michigan, I don't see why they won't do it for Worlds. But maybe they are doing it for Worlds and they're going to tell us at a later point.
Yeah, maybe. So actually, if you've been, typing Argos1756 as your last chance, type it in chat for this wonderful giveaway of a t-shirt and a keychain from a team. So as we're showing this to you on the screen, I'm going to count down so that Tyler can roll for our winner. So get your Argos, ARGOS 1756 into that chat quickly, and Tyler is going to roll in 5, 4, 3, 2, do the thing. Tyler, who is our winner? WSH32. WSH32, you've won the giveaway. So make sure that you contact Tyler either with a DM on Twitch, on the Facebook page, or on our Discord server to be able to get your size and your shipping address so we can get you your win. But that is going to do it for us here tonight on Candidly Speaking. Yes, if you didn't win the giveaway, but go ahead and spam your rigged in the chats. So thank you guys to everybody who's helping make the show possible. If you like what we do here on Fun, all that we ask is that you click the follow button. Again, it's right up here, and invite others to come watch the show and be part of such a great community. If you can spare something about the price of a cup of coffee, you can either donate or give bits here on Twitch, or you can subscribe. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe for free if you connect to Twitch and get Twitch Prime. Those funds go directly to creating great content on Fun. You can also add us on Snapchat under First Updates Now. And throughout the season, our fun hosts from all over the world are going to give you some behind-the-scenes looks at wherever we are all over the world.
Candidly Speaking, we'll be back next month after the championships, and we do have a great lineup of shows on the Fun Network every Monday and Tuesday. So if you're at championships, be on lookout for multiple members of the Fun crew and come say hi. So on behalf of myself, Libby, and our producer Tyler working behind the scenes, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to all of our moderators in chat and everyone who gave us some great questions. If you're watching live, make sure you stick around for FRC Top 25, which starts in a few minutes. So we'll see you next time on Candidly Speaking. Talk to you then.
Bye, guys.